Dickon, we're thinking about the team audit that we ask teams to do prior to really committing to training, actually, when they're thinking about training. Can you just talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, and the reason for making this video is, I think, our sense that our experiences to date are that teams that are using this pre-training audit, our impression, this is anecdote, but our impression is those that get into that process are getting more out of the training, and it gets embedded better and really is helpful to them.
So what do we mean by team audit? What are the sorts of things we're asking them to think about?
Well, I suppose I'm going to start by just saying, in a nutshell, people watching this video might not know a whole lot about AMBIT yet. But AMBIT takes a stance that it is not a sort of single monolithic, bolted-in, rigid way of working. It's a set of core principles based on evidence-based practices and the latest theory. But part of the AMBIT model is to really help teams to develop their own identity as what the literature talks about as a learning organisation. So we're not interested in simply having people dance to some tune that's written far away, but to try to develop a kind of combination of a sort of judicious, thoughtful use of evidence with a translation of their own experience. So the point of the pre-training audit is really to kick off that process, that if a team really thinks that doing the AMBIT training is a good idea, the first question for them to ask is, why do we need any training at all? Lots of the teams we train are really rather experienced and rather knowledgeable about what they're doing in their field already.
But isn't it the role of the manager to decide what training the team needs?
Well, I think our take would be we're trying to take a line that, yes, we don't want to undermine managerial responsibility and authority. Absolutely, we see that as critical to a team working safely. But that if you are about training and changing whole team practices in a way that different professionals in that team feel is acceptable and makes sense to them and actually will help change their behaviours. There really does need to be ownership in a team at all levels. So what we want to try to invite teams to do is to set up one or two periods of time where the team can come together. They might want to structure that in a way to keep things as calm as possible. We know that when teams start to think about how things should be in the future, that can be quite arousing, and it can be tense at times. So they need to think about how they might structure that in order to try to create, if you like, if I was going to model it, a sort of state of mind in the workers in that team where they can be genuinely curious about what are the things that we think we do really well, that we want to build on and potentially be able to be better at broadcasting to other practitioners who might like to learn from us. And what are the things that if a training was going to help our team in our task, if it was helpful, what would be different at the end of a training? And so in a sense, I suppose in a nutshell, if a team answers the point of the training is to teach us about AMBIT, that would worry us a bit. I think what we want to know is what does the team think about its own practice? That we do identify we spend too long discussing the wrong cases, not enough time spending to talk about the right cases, or we feel that there's not enough of a sort of coherent understanding of what we're trying to do within the team, or our team does all that very well, but our relationship with certain other agencies is sometimes problematic, and we would really like some structured attention and see that those relationships improve. So we really want the team audit to be a pretty open and honest experience by the team of exercise, where they really are looking as a group of professionals trying to work in a very difficult field to identify what we as a team feel would be the next step, so that a year from now, how would we like some of these core elements of our practice to shift and adapt and be better supported. Does that? I think that's
So the audit is a kind of whole team activity where people are engaged to think about, well, what do we do well?
Yeah.
Where are the areas that we need to develop? What do we want to see differently? What do we want to see changed through a team training together? And I guess that might mean that an outcome might be that they decide, actually, we don't need AMBIT training, we need something else.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. So I mean, I think that if we can start a team with a sense of that ownership, we move away from what our experience of training many teams now has been, is that those teams that have had that sort of pre-thinking, have had some sense of connectedness as a team, that they have a bit of a shared goal about what they want out of a training, it's more likely to take up. AMBIT is very much a co-construction. The very manual that they use is one that they will be writing and building on some of the material that we've written, that itself has been influenced by the 80 or more teams that we've trained. So what we hope is that the material that we offer is of relevance to teams working with complicated, hard to reach, high risk young people or families, because that's been our experience of increasing that and improving that from the feedback of other teams. But the team itself, we want them to engage in this as a sort of a partnership and a co-construction, rather than in a sense that they will be subjected to something from on high by a bunch of people who may know actually very little about the genuine work that they do.